I'll see that the number of students who are attending the lectures is less, I will not do the recordings.
Okay, ma'am.
Because just by seeing the recordings, it will not be easy for you to understand everything, all the concepts. See, now what happens? Now I am declaring a variable. Somewhere I have to initialize this variable with some value. So for that, normally it is a practice, a good practice of the programming, that you should initialize them in a particular function or somewhere. Yes or no? Why do we need to initialize a variable? हम लोग क्यों initialize करना पड़ता है variables को? If I'll not initialize this a and b, and simply if I am printing that a and b, what will happen? What will happen, students? Yes, student.
Yes, ma'am.
If I am simply printing the value of a and b. What will happen? Nobody knows. What value of a and b get printed? Yes, what happened?
मैम बीच में आपका आवाज थोड़ा चला गया था।
अच्छा, अभी आ रहा है मेरा आवाज?
हाँ अभी
अभी मैं क्या पूछ रही हूँ, एक बार वापस सुनो। मैंने ये वेरिएबल्स डिक्लेयर किया a एंड b, ओके। फिर मेरे पास गेट डेटा मेथड है जिसको मैंने अभी तक डिफाइन नहीं किया है। आई जस्ट डिक्लेयर दैट गेट डेटा मेथड एंड आई हैव अ पुट डेटा मेथड. पुट डेटा मेथड आई एम जस्ट यूजिंग टू प्रिंट द वैल्यूज ऑफ a एंड b. Now I am not written anything to accept that values or initialize that value. Somewhere I need to initialize that values if I am printing the value of it. Yes, or no? Okay. So now just tell me, if I am writing this program, what will happen?
Ma'am, junk values of a and b will be printed.
What values of a and b will get printed?
Junk value or 0.
Junk value or 0. Junk, you say it as junk. We say it as a garbage value. Can you see a garbage value of a and b?
Yes, ma'am.
Now why it has happened? Because we have not initialized that variables. Why it has happened? Because we have not initialized that variable. So if we'll print it like this, it will give you the garbage value. So this is the garbage value of a and this is the garbage value of b, because they are not initialized. So always it is a good practice of the programmer that whenever you are using any kind of a variables, you need to initialize them. So what are the different ways in which you can initialize them? Either you can write in the declaration itself, you can write a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 10. That way you can do. I hope all of you are aware about this. Yes, this is one way. Another way, if suppose अगर मुझे यहाँ पे नहीं assign करना है values, so what I wanted to do, I can assign them in a particular function. So here also I can assign these values. If I wanted to write, I can write a is equal to 5 and I can write b is equal to 20. Just an example. I can do it in this way also, right?
Yes,
if I'll do this, I will get the value of a as what happened? Sorry, I have not called that method. That's why. So if I am doing, I'm calling get data, and if I'll execute it, now I will get a is equal to 5, b is equal to 20. Okay, this is another way. What is the third way? I said you can ask the user to enter the value. Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so every time whenever you are writing your program, you need to initialize your variables. You can do it anywhere. Either you do it inside the function or you do it at the time of declaration. This is the best practice. So, and when this abhi, though we have written class dummy or udhar int a and b likha, then we have written get data method, we have assigned some value. Is it getting initialized the moment we will execute our program? Immediately wo initialize hoga? When these values will get initialized? ये वैल्यू इनिशियलाइज कब होगा? कब ये वैल्यूज a is equal to 5 और b is equal to 20 एग्जीक्यूट होगा? कैन एनीबडी विल टेल मी? यस अजिल.
Sorry, ma'am.
I am saying though you have written a is equal to 5, b is equal to 20 ऊपर पहले प्रोग्राम में ही, when this initialization will be done after executing your program, immediately हो जाएगा प्रोग्राम एग्जीक्यूट करते ही. कौन सा लाइन एग्जीक्यूट करने के बाद ये तुम्हारा वैल्यूज इनिशियलाइज हो जाएगा?
Get data वाला, object वाला.
First it will go for int main.
Yes, first it will go for int main. See, please remember this. I have told you 100 times, like whenever we are executing a program, though we have written a class first in our program, our compiler will start its execution from main. It will start its execution from main, and what it will do first, it will create this object. तो मेमोरी में क्या होगा? पहला एक मेमोरी D, ये ऑब्जेक्ट D के लिए ऑक्यूपाई होगा. Now what this object D will do? वो मेमोरी में ही, now what you are doing, you are calling D dot get data. First, after creating this object, what is the next sentence that will get executed? This sentence will get executed. Okay, so when you are calling D dot get data, when this compiler will execute this line, what it will do? It will call your get data method. Yes or no? And when it will call that get data method, then inside that object ka memory, it will create a separate memory for variable A and separate memory for variable B. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
So that means when you are creating your object, and with that object, when you are calling your get data method, that time the variables of the class will get initialized. Understood this concept?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now every time, see, as I have told you, like there will be lots of real-time programs you may have, or you may write it in object-oriented programming. So every time writing this get data function will not be a convenient method. So that's why C++ provides us another technique, which is called as, you can make use of a constructors. So what is this constructor? So again, a constructor is nothing but what? A special function only. But why it is called as constructor, or why it is called as special member function? Because वो function का name जो रहेगा ना, that name will be same as your class name. Now I will tell you why that is being done. Constructors are created just to initialize your variables only. That is the use of your constructor. Please remember this. What is the use of a constructor? Constructors are always used to initialize the variables of the class. Okay. So then we want this initialization to be done immediately. So since we want that to be done immediately, so that's why we will create a special member function whose name will be same as your class name. So what is our class name? Dummy. So then I will create, and there will be no return type required for this particular constructor. Like you can call it as a special member function, or you can call it as a constructor. So what is your constructor? It's a special member function because it is having the same name as your class name. And what this constructor function will have? It will have your initialization of the variables. Okay, what it will do? It will do the initialization of the variables. So what happens now? Whenever you are writing this program, and now your compiler will start its execution from main. So what this main will do? Main will create the object. Abhi ye object is of your class type. This object is of your class type dummy. D is the object of your class dummy. Yes or no? Now I don't have a get data method. So will I be able to call this function?
No, ma'am.
No. मेरे पास get data method ही नहीं है. So how will I call it? I cannot call it. So do I need to write D dot dummy? Do I have to write this? What do you think? Is this will be a correct? Tell me whatever your answer is. Let it be right or wrong.
मैम बट बिना रिटर्न टाइप का फंक्शन कैसे हो सकता है?
बिना रिटर्न टाइप का फंक्शन कैसे हो सकता है? ओके, he's saying बिना रिटर्न टाइप का, but it is same as your class name ना.
यस मैम.
That also I will answer you, but just see that now if I'll write d dot dummy, I will get an error, means or otherwise I'll just check what we are getting. Can you see? Invalid use of dummy. We cannot write d dot dummy. Why? Because dummy is your class name, so you cannot call any of, then it will be considered dummy as a function, but dummy is not a function, it is a special member function which is called as constructor, so we cannot call this. Okay. So अभी हम लोगों ने कॉल नहीं किया, तो will our this statement gets executed and will our variables get initialized? So my answer is yes. If I am writing only, if I am creating only object, then also, and if I am not calling any of my constructor methods, still my constructor will get invoked and it will get initialized with the values. Okay, just a minute, students. See now what happens. If I'll execute this program, now it will get executed. If I'll execute it, it will get executed. Just see it. Can you see? I got the answer.
Yes ma'am.
Now why this is happening? This is happening because the moment you will use constructors in your program, what happens? The use of your constructor is that the moment you will create your object, the first thing that will get invoked is your constructor. बिकॉज हम लोग को क्या करना है, जैसे ही ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट करते हैं हम लोग को जो भी क्लास का वेरिएबल्स है उनको इनिशियलाइज करना है. So the purpose of your constructor is the moment your object gets created, your constructor will get invoked and it will initialize all the variables that whatever you have written inside your constructor. So here what happens now? So that's why when I am writing dummy D, when I am creating that object itself, my constructor will get invoked, right? Because dummy क्या है? Class name ही है ना. Dummy is same as your class. Dummy is same as your class name, so automatically it will get invoked and all the variables will get initialized. So you don't have to call any separate method for this. If you have used constructor in your program, then there is no need to call any separate method for initializing only your variables. Understood? अगर मैंने ये नहीं भी लिखा, okay, first tell me, have you clear with this concept?
Ma'am.
Yes, everyone.
Ma'am,
Yes,
I had
sir.
a question.
Yes.
मैम विदाउट यूज ऑफ कंस्ट्रक्टर अगर हम लोग पब्लिक के अंदर ओपनली लिखे ए का और बी का वैल्यू, तो वो भी कंस्ट्रक्टर जैसे काम करेगा या कंस्ट्रक्टर ज़्यादा फास्टर रहेगा?
नहीं, कंस्ट्रक्टर विल गेट इन्वोक फर्स्ट, इमीडिएटली इन्वोक होगा. अगर तुम लोग
Okay.
पब्लिक फंक्शन में लिख रहे हो ना, तुम्हें सेपरेटली उसको वो फंक्शन को कॉल करना पड़ेगा. See, like अभी put data में if I am writing something a is equal to 10 and b is equal to 20, I have to call that put data method first, then only it will get initialized ना. Are you getting clear?
Yes ma'am.
If I am writing it inside any other function, I have to call that function using the object. मतलब ये और एक स्टेप तुम्हारा बढ़ जाएगा. अगर सपोज मेरा यहाँ पे और एक मेथड है, लाइक आई हैव अ मेथड कॉल्ड एज void initialize करके एक मेथड लिखा मैंने, जिसके अंदर अगेन आई एम इनिशियलाइजिंग द वैल्यूज ऑफ a इज इक्वल टू 50 एंड b इज इक्वल टू 30. अभी जब तक मैं d डॉट इनिशियलाइज कॉल नहीं करेगी, वो a इज इक्वल टू 50 वाला वैल्यू असाइन होगा ही नहीं. यस और नो? Yes or no? बट अगर मैंने कंस्ट्रक्टर लिखा मेरा प्रोग्राम में तो ऑटोमेटिकली जब भी मैं ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट करेगी ना ऑटोमेटिकली वो कंस्ट्रक्टर इन्वोक हो जाएगा और ये कोड एग्जीक्यूट होगा, कंस्ट्रक्टर वाला पार्ट एग्जीक्यूट होके वो वैल्यूज इनिशियलाइज होगा. इज दिस क्लियर टू एवरीवन? Yes. Is this clear to everyone?
Yes,
Okay. Now just understand another concept. अभी मैंने क्या किया इसमें, मैंने a is equal to 5 और b is equal to 20 ऐसा इनिशियलाइज किया. You can have constructor without initializing it with any values also, which is called as your null constructor. We can write it this way also. If you will write it this way, it means that the moment your object gets created, your variables will get initialized to 0. क्योंकि तुमने कंस्ट्रक्टर यूज किया तुम्हारा प्रोग्राम में, तो इट मींस व्हाट, योर वेरिएबल्स विल गेट इनिशियलाइज्ड टू 0, सो यू विल नॉट गेट एनी गार्बेज वैल्यू. आर यू गेटिंग? सो नाउ इफ आई रन दिस, सॉरी, जस्ट अ मिनट, right. Okay, now here it is taking the garbage value, but actually it should not take because this is constructor with no arguments. So I'll just check this part like this, or otherwise what I can do, inside this I can write a is equal to 0, and then if I want my variables to be initialized with 0. So if I run this now, I will have both a is equal to 0 and b is equal to 0. Understood? So the use of your constructor is यहाँ पे just एक line तुम्हारा कम हो जाएगा. You don't have to call that function with the object. Object dot function name लिख के तुम्हें call नहीं करना पड़ेगा. Understood everyone? Yes students.
Yes ma'am, yes ma'am, understood.
Now constructors also you can write it outside the class and you can declare them inside the class. वो भी तुम लोग कर सकते हो. So how you will do that? अगर constructor तुम्हें declare करना है तो you will always remember that your constructors will be declared or defined only in the public section of the class. You cannot write your constructors in the private section. This is an important rule, please remember this. They should be always declared or defined in the public section. So if I wanted to declare, I can write it like this. And then to write the definition of this, what I need to do? If suppose now I wanted to write the definition of this. So then to write the definition of this, for your constructor return type is also not required. So what is your class name? Dummy. What is the constructor name? Dummy. Followed by, if you have any variables, if you have any parameters, you pass that parameters. Then 10 equals to 10. So this is constructor definition outside the class. This way you can write constructor outside the class. If I run this, Can you see? I got A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 20. Understood, students?
Yes, ma'am.
Now please note down some of the important characteristics of these constructors. Everyone. The first characteristic of your constructor, they should be declared in the public section. Are you noting it down, students?
Yes, ma'am.
So the first point you write it down, they should be declared in the public section. Second point, they are invoked automatically. They are invoked automatically when the objects are created. When the objects are created. Third point, they do not have return types. They do not have return types. Not even void. They do not have return types, not even void, and therefore they cannot return values. They cannot return values. Next point, they cannot be inherited. They cannot be inherited. So that inheritance the concept we will see in inheritance chapter, but just remember that constructors cannot be inherited. Next point, like other C++ function, they can have default arguments. Like other C++ function, they can have default arguments. Okay. Now this is important point. There are certain other points also we have, but these are the important points for this chapter. Okay, inheritance वाला point छोड़ के बाकी सब important है. तो ये सब जब भी तुम लोग कंस्ट्रक्टर क्रिएट कर रहे हो ना, you have to remember all this point. Okay. Okay, students.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now we will see one example, a proper example of this constructor. Now we have seen this just one simple example. If you wanted to try, you can just take a pic of it and you can try it at home. Shall I remove this program? Yes, student. Shall I remove
I'm
this?
done. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now I will create another class. In which suppose I have two integer variables, let m. If I am ready, or instead of integer, I will write some other name so that you will not get confused. Class. Class name is my using constructor. So if I wanted to create a constructor over here, so I have to write the same class name. So using constructor. If you wanted to pass the parameters, you can pass. Otherwise, you can write void. Suppose I am closing this class. Now what is remaining? This is what your constructor declaration. So constructor declaration. Why this is called as constructor declaration, or how I got to know this is constructor declaration? Because this function name is same as your class name. Okay. Now what we need to do? We need to define this constructor. So what is your class name? Using constructor. And what is your constructor name? Using constructor. First two parameters, that is suppose int a. Okay. What is your class name? Using constructor as UC. What I need to for this constructor, since this constructor takes the parameter, so when I am creating an object, to that object also I can pass the parameter. See, देखो, जब मैंने constructor को declare किया, क्या किया मैंने वो constructor को 2 parameters pass किए. What we have learned now, the constructor will get invoked the moment you will create your object. तो मतलब I can pass the values to that object itself. तो कौन सा टाइप का वैल्यूज पास करना है मुझे? 2 इंटीजर वैल्यूज पास करना है. Suppose I am passing the value as 0, 50. Then I will write dot. Which method we have to call?
Display.
Now what will happen when we will execute this program? Can anybody will tell me?
Ma'am, the values of m and n will be printed as 0 and 50.
Yes, anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, Sweetie, Himakshi.
First, ma'am, first it will print object 1, then it will print the value of m and n.
So see what happens now when you execute this. You know that your execution starts from main. So what it will do? It will create this UC1 as the first object. But you know that UC1 will invoke your constructor. So where is your constructor? It will check for that. And UC1 will take that values and it will pass it to that constructor. So A will take the value 0 and B will take the value 50. So when it will go inside that constructor, that 0 and 50 will be assigned to M and N. Okay. But we are not yet printing that value. So it will just get assigned. Then after that, what is happening? It will print that object 1, and then when you are calling UC1.display, with that M and N ka values will get displayed. So now if I run, I will get object 1 with M is equal to 0 and N is equal to 50. Now suppose I am creating another object. See what I said, whatever the number of objects you will create, every time when you will create the object, your constructor will get invoked. Now suppose I am creating another object before this return. I am creating. Now another object, again I can create it like this. UC2 other value. Suppose now I am giving 50, 100. UC2 dot now if I run this, can you see I got object 1 as 0, 50 and object 2 as 50, 100. Understood? So remember that always your constructor will get called the moment you create your object. You don't have to call it separately. We are not writing UC1 dot using constructor, or we are not writing UC1 dot any other function which is used for initialization, right? Because the moment we create the object, our constructor will get invoked. Now this is called as your calling constructor implicitly. This method which you have is what called as calling your constructor implicitly. You can call your constructor explicitly also. Now how you will do that? Now suppose I wanted to create another object. So what I will do, I will write using constructor. Using constructor, and here I will pass the value as 200, comma. And I will out. Three dot. Now when I run this one, can you see the output?
No.
Now this method which I used just now, what I have written? I have written using constructor UC3 is equal to, is what called as calling your constructor explicitly. Called as calling your constructor. Everyone, the concept of constructors. Yes, students.
Yes, ma'am.
मैम एक्सप्लिसिटली वाला वापस बताओ ना.
सी एक्सप्लिसिटली मतलब क्या है, हम लोग नया कंस्ट्रक्टर, सी यहाँ पे नया ऑब्जेक्ट क्रिएट कर रहे हैं, बट ये नया ऑब्जेक्ट व्हेन यू आर राइटिंग इट इन दिस वे, नया ऑब्जेक्ट इज इक्वल टू, सी आई एम राइटिंग यूजिंग कंस्ट्रक्टर UC3 इज इक्वल टू यूजिंग कंस्ट्रक्टर ऑफ 200, 300. अगेन आई एम नॉट, इसके आगे वापस मैं ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं लिख रही हूँ. दिस इज अनदर वे, दिस इज अ मेथड in which your constructor can be called. जैसा like when you are creating new अभी Java तुम लोग नहीं है, but next year when you learn the Java, in Java you will learn that whenever we want to create new objects of a particular thing, we can create it this way. So that is also this calling your constructor explicitly is similar to creating a new object. So what we are doing, UC3 we are creating a new object and immediately we are passing value to it. But since we are assigning this value to this UC3, this is what called as your explicit calling of your function.
Okay, ma'am, understood.
Everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, it is not necessary that you need to have only one constructor in a class. It is not at all like that. You can have multiple constructors in your one single class also. And there are different types of constructors also that we will see in this chapter. Okay. You can have constructor with no arguments. You can have constructor with 2 arguments. You can have constructor with 1 argument. Like it will depend on how many number of arguments you want. That many type of constructors you can write it in your program. Because you know that you don't have to write any special code for calling your constructor. Your constructor will get automatically invoked the moment you create the object. So that's why in your program you can have as many number of constructors. So is everyone done with this example?
Ma'am, can you send the code of this? It's too big now.
Where should I send this code?
In the chat.
But then you should practice this, huh? Don't simply copy the code and paste it in the chat box when I'll tell you during the practicals.
No, ma'am. Asking this code for identifying the error, ma'am, by comparing. That's why.
Now you can cross check this afterwards. Let us go to the next example. So what I said, there are multiple types of constructors you can have in your program. First one, as I told you, the constructor which don't take any argument, which is called as constructors with no argument, or you can call it as a default constructor. Okay. Then you can have a constructor with 1 argument or constructor with 2 arguments. So we will see one program now. Shall I remove this program? I've removed it. I've seen last time also. Now I am creating. I am writing this. What this will be? Yes, student.
Constructor declaration.
So now this is also your constructor. This is called as constructor with no arguments. This is your constructor with 1 argument. RG is argument, and this is constructor with
Ma'am, you're on mute.
Okay. So where we were. What I was telling, in this program now I have one null constructor, or you can call it as a constructor with no arguments, then constructor with one argument, and constructor with two arguments. Okay. Now for that constructor with two arguments. Now this constructors I have already defined inside the class, so I can close the class. Okay. And then suppose I have one show method. Method I have. Now void show method, suppose this method I am writing it outside the class. Void. What is your class name? Complex. And what you will write inside this, since we don't have any. Now what we wanted to display, we just wanted to display the values of that x and y. So we will write x is equal. Okay, so we have a show method to display that. All of you clear till this method?
Yes, ma'am.
And we have a main. So now it is not necessary that you have to follow the same order in which you have created your constructor. Suppose I have created an object with I have to display that value. So cout 1 equals to, I wanted to print the values of C1. I'll write C1. Where I will write out now what happens in this program. अभी ऊपर का सब पार्ट तुम्हें समझा है. ऊपर what we have done inside the class, we have just declared two variables and we have written some constructors and we have one normal show method. तो वो show method हमने डिक्लेयर किया है, तो उसका डेफिनेशन आउटसाइड द क्लास लिखा जिसमें we are printing the values of x and y. Now what happens when your first statement gets executed? What this first statement says? Can anybody will tell me? What this first statement says? Yes, students.
Float A will be 1.8.
See, when you are writing complex C1, C1 क्या है तुम्हारा? What is your C1?
Object.
Yes, C1 is an object which is having one object consisting of one parameter value. It contains one parameter and that is a value, float value. So what happens when you are creating one object with one parameter? What happens? The constructor with one parameter will get invoked. कौन सा constructor invoke होगा? See, because since to this object we have passed only one value, so what I said, whenever you are creating an object, a constructor will get invoked. But in our program now we have three constructors. So out of that, which constructor will get invoked? The constructor with one parameter will get invoked. One parameter or one argument. Are you getting students? Since we are passing only one value to this object, so what will happen with this object? With C1, constructor which is having only one parameter, that will get invoked. So A का value क्या हो जाएगा? 1.8, and that's why X value also you will get as 1.8 and Y value also you will get it as 1.8. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Now when you will come to the second line, so we are done with this line. Now when your compiler will come to the second line, what happens? Now again you have here what you have again a constructor. Again you have a constructor, again you are creating an object C2 which is having two values, to that object how many values we have passed?
Two values.
Sorry students, by mistake it got disconnected. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
So listen, now what happens when it will come to the second line? It sees that this object has two parameters, so it will invoke only that constructor which contains two parameters. तो ये वाला constructor ही invoke होगा. Are you getting? When we have an object with two parameters, constructor with two parameters will get invoked, and then the real will get the value 1.8, 1.5, and imaginary will get the value 2.5. So X will get the value 1.5 and Y will get the value 2.5. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now next we have a constructor to which, we have an object to which we are not passing any arguments, or to which we are not passing any value. So which constructor will get invoked?
Null wala.
Null wala, yes. When we are calling only object, that time a constructor with no argument will get invoked. Okay, and then the value should get initialized to 0. So now we will see what answer we are getting to this. So now if I'll execute this, see it here. So for C1, we are getting a value of x as 1.8, y ka value also 1.8. For C2, we are getting x ka value as 1.5 and y ka value 2.5. Abhi C3, now in this online compiler, actually we are not getting that values with 0, 0. But actually we should get the values with 0, 0. अगर नहीं आ रहा है तो then what we need to do? We need to initialize them with 0, 0. Okay. If we are not getting 0, 0, so what we need to do? Here inside this we should write x is equal to 0. So your values will get reinitialized with 0, 0. Now can you see this? Understood everyone? So for object C1 we have x and y values are same. For C2 x and y values are different, and for C3 it is both the values are 0. Is this program clear to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
So copy this program everyone. Copy this program.
Okay, ma'am.
Done? Done everyone?
Ma'am, can you scroll down?
Done?
Done, ma'am, done.
So today we'll stop it over here. In the next lecture we'll see the another concept, otherwise it will be too much confusing for you. So please,
Yes.
whatever the concepts we do, you please revise it once, so that next time when you will come for the next lecture, it will not be confusing for you. If you are thorough with the previous points, whatever we have discussed, or previous topic, then it will be really helpful for you when you will come for the next lecture. Okay, so we in the next lecture we'll be seeing how we can assign in the constructors, how we can assign the default values, or how we can do the dynamic initialization. That two parts we are going to see, and then we are going to see one more type of a constructor, that is a copy constructor. Now the constructor which we have used here with one parameter or two parameter, they are called as parameterized constructor. See, initially what we have one constructor where we have initialized it with the value 0, 0. That is called as your constructor with no arguments, or it is called as your null constructor. When you have constructor with one argument, two argument, or three argument, or you can say parameters, it will be called as your parameterized constructor. Okay. And then we have another type of constructor that is called as copy constructor. So that we will see it in the next lecture. Okay, students?
Okay, ma'am.
मैम आप जो अभी पढ़ा है उसको ओवरलोडिंग बोलते हैं ना, मतलब अकॉर्डिंग टू आर्ग्यूमेंट्स द फंक्शंस आर कॉल्ड.
No. This is not overloading. Overloading is done with, this is, you can call this as constructor ka overloading, not function overloading.
Okay, ma'am.
This is a class with multiple constructors.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Thank you and bye.